It tells me a story, because a lot of what I do is storytelling. As chefs, we are storytellers. What I do is healing to me. It preserves me. It preserves my uniqueness, my identity, connects me to hope.
How would you describe your style?
I'd hope that it's my own. And it's not modern, but it appears modern. It's not classical, but it pays homage to classical cuisines and as much precision as possible. And when I say precision, it's not just in placement, but it's precision in taste. It's precision in time.
So before this podcast starts, I just want to take this opportunity to say a massive thank you to all of you who've watched, enjoyed and subscribed to the channel recently. Since the last episode with Chef Alex Nike, the channel's gone from 495 subscribers and rocketed all the way to over 1,200. I'm so humbled by this show of support and will endeavour to keep my promise to keep improving on the quality each and every time. And I'm confident that this episode with Chef Kareem Roberts definitely lives up to that, as he has one of the most creative and unique perspectives on plate design that I've heard so far on this podcast. So get ready to learn and be inspired. Now, I've got more amazing chefs lined up for 2024, so if you have any questions or queries about plate design or food aesthetics, then let me know in the comments below. But anyway, that's enough of that. Let's get on with my fascinating conversation with Kareem. Enjoy. Welcome to the Food Aiming Podcast. We're here in the delightful Cambridge today, and I'm here with Kareem Roberts from Trinity in Cambridge. How's it going today, Kareem?
Wicked, man. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you for the opportunity, man.
Oh, no, it's really good to come in and see you. I've never been to Cambridge before, so it's really nice to see. And what a beautiful restaurant you've got.
Yeah, lovely. That's funny. We have that in common, well, oppositionally common, because I've never left Cambridge. I'm stuck here, guys. I'm stuck here. Not really, but I hardly get out.
Yeah. Brilliant stuff. Well, I'm going to start with the first question. Usually quite a tough one, but what to you makes a beautiful plate of food?
Wow.
Yeah. Going with beautiful, the big guns.
Okay, no, there is no definitive answer for this, but for me personally, I like to see indistinguishability. I like to see something that's unique. Like, I don't want to see something that looks like something that I've seen before. So I like to be inspired by novelty, but I don't want it to be overly novel. So I do have an appreciation for classicism. I like to see a classic composition, like minimal elements, well-cooked ingredients, which is first and foremost, and it has to be inviting to me. I like negative space on the plate, and I also like angles. I'm not such a big fan of height. Like back in the day, people used to think that the taller plate of food is more attractive, so you pile everything on top of each other. But I do like geometry, and I like anti-geometry as well. I like imperfections. It's like there used to be that rule of 3, and people said, well, you need 3 and never even numbers. I think that's ridiculous, because I think you can put 2 of something on a plate and it's beautiful. They can be parallel, or they can appear to intersect. I like that appeal. I like illusionary food as well, in that I like things that challenge me to understand it without being overly challenged. So when you're asking me what I like everything. But there's also a lot of things I don't like. I don't like things that I see that have been overdone. So I hate trends. At the same time, I understand that for something to become a trend, it needs to have mass appeal. So I'm not the type of person who hates people for liking things or hates things that people like. But I do think that we should never just be so conformative to only create in the parameters of things that have been created already.
Well, I think it's also good to have an opinion as well. Don't you think? Because so many people are not prepared to say, I like this or I don't like this. And I think in food or in art, what makes you different is to have that opinion, saying, this is what I like. You're very welcome to like what you like as well, for other people. That's not a problem. But I think it's important to have a strong identity in this is my style. And that can change. But I think it's important to have that degree of, this is my opinion, I'm happy to stand behind it.
I'm very opinionated in those ways, man. And I remember once upon a time when I was much more vocal about my dislikes, when I used to blog, when I used to be more active on various social media platforms or engage with my peers in social media groups, I would tell them many a time, nah, man, that fat is trash. You shouldn't be doing it. No one should be doing it. I was very open-minded, and I would let people know when I saw things that I didn't necessarily think, things that were fickle.
So tell me a bit about your background and your cooking style. How would you describe your style?
Oh man, I hate that question.
Well,
I get it so often, and I've been saying to myself, something, I get asked that question so often that I really should have very neat, concise, and luckily, if I'm lucky, a witty answer, which I don't. Because what my style is, I guess the best way to describe it is I'd hope that it's my own.
Okay.
In that there are things that I like and things that I don't like, as we explained earlier. And it's not modern, but it appears modern.
Okay.
It's not classical, but it pays homage to classical cuisine in many ways. I like to think that it's a modern rustic, if that makes sense. It's contradictory what I do.
I like that already. I've never, modern rustic. Okay.
Yeah, it's simple in the fact that everything that I do, you should identify with it. You should see what I'm cooking. There shouldn't be much room for it to be explained. Like I don't overly manipulate the ingredients because I am not any greater of a creator, and that's what we do when we create dishes. We are creators, so it is we have a bit of a God complex, if you will. Yeah, hell yeah, every chef has a God complex, whether they admit it or not. And if you're a chef and you don't have a God complex, I question how much you're pushing, man. Because no, seriously, as you should be as a chef, aspiring to create something that has never existed.
Okay.
Much like life.
Yep.
Life never existed until it was created. So we should be trying to push boundaries.
Yep.
And I know in the infinite well of inspiration that exists out there that we all communally draw from, because I believe that everyone's inspiration comes from an abundant field, or an infinitely abundant field that we occasionally tap into. Could be in the form of a dream, could be in the form of a manifestation, it could be in the form of an idea.
Yeah.
I don't know how everyone creates, but I think that everyone takes from that same well of things that possibly exist already. I don't think anything is new.
No.
At the same time, I do think that there are things that have never been done before. So I think that it's very contradictory what we do. We do try to reinvent the wheel and make and sell it as a new product.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of it, because we are successful.
I think that's fascinating. I, as a fellow creative, I don't see myself as an artist. I see myself as more as a craft. How do you perceive yourself in terms of the art versus more of a craft, of the discipline of cooking, plating, that kind of side?
First, as a chef, I'm a craftsman.
Interesting.
Yes, obviously, because I every cut, every incision that I make, I try to challenge nature and create straight lines when no line in existence is truly straight. I try to put things in the perfect position when nothing is perfect. I try to cook things to the perfect temperature, when in reality, that is a fleeting moment. It's only perfect for a moment of time. Then the temperature changes. Then the consistency changes. The protein congeals. I try to capture lightning in a bottle every time. Like, we are ambitious cowboys of sorts, where we aspire to do these things. And it's quite, I would say it's actually pretty romantic that we do these things. So this is where the artistry comes in, because art is an expression, as what I do is an expression. It's a beautiful expression, but it's also chaotic. If you look at what we go through, the process from farm or from harvest to presentation, the stuff in the middle is grotesque. It's hideous.
Yeah.
And like, if ask anyone who's ever made bread, look at your hands, man. They're
sweated as well.
Yeah, you've sweat. It's awful.
Yeah.
But when you get to the point where you have the end result, it's rewarding. And that is where I look at myself and where I can reflect upon the craft that I have put in and the time. And I can feel as if, wow, that's beautiful. And I do give myself those moments of self-appreciation quite often as well. When I do something and I think it's beautiful, I will let myself know, God damn it, Kareem, you did well. Like, there is no shortage of me doing that. But at the same time, when I don't do something good enough, I'm like, this is not good enough. This is nowhere near good enough. I need it to, or if I do something that's too familiar to something I've done before, I'm never content with it. And that's where I try to push the envelope on what I can create visually. Because you wonder to yourself, and it's like we say, I remember I was listening to something where they were speaking about artistry, and the artist is not sure, and many artists are not sure whether or not they create it in their mind first, or do they create it with their hands? Because they're not sure if they really have an idea of what they're making. think it was someone, or some writer who says, yo, my brain doesn't know what the hell my hands are doing.
That's mad, isn't it?
Yo, it is kind of. It's instinctive though. It's instinctive, and many of the times I don't really revise my presentation. It's a lot of it is fluid.
Yep.
I do something once and that's it. Now maybe I'll never do it again. And you do see similarities in the way that I present. I have things that are functional, that serve purposes. Like for example, I like to do circles on a plate, and not just because they're aesthetically appealing, but because they frame the sauce.
Okay.
I don't have sauce leaking all over the plate. I don't like that.
So it's got function as well.
It's functional. I do like a bit of functionality with what I do, but in a perfect world, I'd love to remove that, man. I'd love to actually explore the dysfunction of what I create and then try to align that into order.
So how do you find plating? Like, is it Massimo Bottura who does the real like splashes and mess and stuff like that? Do you prefer because I personally, again, talking about opinion, I prefer a more precise plate of food, to be honest with you. Visually, it's really striking, and I love the fact that you can see his plate and you know that's him or he started it, stuff like that. But I prefer his more precise stuff, and I generally prefer more precise stuff in general, and I think I prefer more precise stuff in art or whatever I consume. I like the precision of stuff. It's interesting to know what you think.
Well, okay, so first of all, big up man like Massimo Bottura, right? Like absolutely. I would never, you see man like me, Massimo Bottura, Gordon Ramsay, Thomas Keller, and one or two other chefs, guys like us. We're allowed to take these creative liberties and do these things, rock star behaviors, and they become iconic. And he did that. And this is where I respect him for doing it, because he did that by accident. That was not like, if you understand the story of Oops, I Dropped the Tart, it was an accident. Like his sous chef dropped the plate and he's like, oh, I dropped the plate. And then Massimo was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And he saw it. So the visionary, he captured it. I respect that. But then when you got every commie chef and CDP whacking ketchup on a plate and a spoon and then get on the apron and then they go out in the restaurant and say, look at what I just did. That's where I have a problem with it. So I do think that some things work for some people, but not for everyone. But I like I said, I've learned to let people like what they like. For me personally, it's far too messy. For me personally, I'm allowed to say that. Right. I think I'm, and then you'd have these people. There was Grant Ashatz who was really doing that whole panoramic presentation across the plate where he's whacking purees on this tablecloth and then dropping this, breaking that, and then it's performative. And that's a part of it. That's part of the artistic expression as well. But that works for him. I can't come out here and then put meringue and then just crumble it on the air in front of a guest and then just say, yeah, man, this is it, 16 quid. I'd be excommunicated. I'd be a laughing stock. No one would really see me as a visionary that they see Massimo Bottura or Grant Ashatz as. However, I can do something else, which is my style is much more in line with a Thomas Keller or a Daniel Humm. And when I say this, I mean, this is no saying, I'm definitely not saying, guys, don't take me out of context here. I'm not saying I am Daniel Humm or Thomas Keller, But depending on who's watching this, I'm much more like Daniel Humm and Thomas Keller than you are, I've earned that right to say this, I'm much closer to them than you might be if you're just some average viewer at home. I've put in that time, that craft, that precision. I understand. I try to execute. I try to make sure that I put as less on the plate with as little interference and as much precision as possible. And when I say precision, it's not just in placement, but it's precision in taste. It's precision in time. It's precision in both time and place.
It's holistic, isn't it? It's everything. I think
exactly. Beautiful word. It's the plate as well, and it's where you serve the plate. It's what the backdrop. It's everything. It's the temperature of the room, and this is where I like everything to be as controlled as possible. And that's where, with what these guys do sometimes when they're whacking plates and they're trucking stuff here and then slinging that on. I'm like, big up to everybody, but I'm not a bukkake artist, man. I'm much more of just a compositional dude. I keep everything right here, nice and neat, as much as possible. Less is more.
I think for me, it comes down to, so when I go, I'm an appreciator of your craft. I cook at home. I am the cook at home. I want to go to a restaurant where I can't do, I can splash something on a plate. What I can't do is the thing with huge amount of precision, that holistic plate of food that has been thought through, the taste, the style, the plate, all of it. That's what I come at. That's what entertains me. That's what makes me excited. You know, that sense of wow when that plate comes down. It's like, this is what I like. You know. So, and again, there's no rights or wrongs. We're not talking about rights or wrongs. We're just talking about what I prefer, and it sounds similar to possibly what you aspire to do when you're working professionally.
Absolutely. And this is one of the things that Daniel Humm, I've seen his evolution throughout the past 15 years, because if you look at what he did in his original 11 Madison Park cookbook and then 11 Madison Park, the second cookbook, he has stripped back so much. He's become so confident in what he does that he's taken away, he's trimmed all the fat to the point where he's actually literally trimming the fat. He uses all vegetables now. He's a vegetable-based 3-star chef now, which was challenged by a lot of people, I know for a fact. Not everyone was ready for that, but he is. And I think he's very futuristic in that. And the things that he does with vegetables are mind-blowing, man. And he still doesn't, he commands the same price point because of who he is and the effort that goes into what he does. And this is the part where the artist becomes a rock star. The craftsman becomes a superstar, celebrity, because what we do as ultimate creators at a certain point is we no longer sell food, we sell experiences, man.
I couldn't agree with you more. That's exactly what you guys are.
Like, I'm not just, even if I just cook a piece of fish for you and just put a really, a perfectly infused oil on that plate and just a roasted shallot and just, I don't know, maybe a dollop of raspberry vinegar to finish it off. Maybe you can do this at home, but you're not at home.
Yeah.
Okay. And you came to me to do this for you. It's much in the same way you can buy a t-shirt from Primark or you can buy a t-shirt from Gucci. The material could be almost indistinguishable, but you want the one that says Gucci. Yeah. And maybe you are wondering to yourself, you're beating yourself up about why you have to pay that exorbitant 400% increase, but you don't have to. But we appeal to desires. Yeah. I believe, who was it that said this? I can't remember who I was listening to. Was it Anthony Bourdain who maybe says, I can't remember who it was that said, we're actually in the pleasure industry as chefs because people come to us for pleasure. I don't think it was Anthony Bourdain. I think it was a podcast I was listening to. I really should remember this. But he says in the restaurant industry, we're not just selling food, we're selling pleasure. It's debauchery. It's like people come here to escape the reality. They come here to look away from their problems. Yeah, sure, maybe they can cook at home, but they don't want to. They want someone to do it for them. It's a luxury thing. Luxuries come with a luxury tax.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think you're right. I think whoever said that quote is absolutely spot on. I've not heard that before, but I'd say that's absolutely right. And it's why I enjoy dining so much, because there's so much pleasure involved in it.
It's actually it's immersive. It's overindulgent as well when you think about it. We overly indulge the things that we eat in a restaurant. We wouldn't really eat like this at home. The amount of butter, the amount of fat, the labor that goes into what we do, and what I'm a very adventurous home cook, and unless I'm taking a picture, I am absolutely not ballotine nothing for my dinner, yo. No, I'm not gonna do it. I can, yes, but I won't. It's like pizza, okay? Can I make pizza? Yeah. Will I make it at home? Absolutely not. I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna pay someone to do it for me. And I'm gonna pay that luxury tax because I can have it when I want it, and I'm telling you to do this for me. No, I'm saying I don't necessarily have a problem with paying a little bit more for a premium pizza. Yeah. But pizza is very competitive, and two pizzerias, when they're doing the same thing, it's a race to the bottom. I'm picking the cheaper one. That's why what I do, it's not an ingredient-driven thing. It's an experience-driven thing. You pay some of the things, and I like to say this, and this is where I stand in my own affirmation when I say some of the things that I do, no one else on earth can do, because the food that I cook comes from me. It's an experience. It's an extension of my personality and of my life. No one on this side of outer space has done what I've done. They've never lived what I've lived. Yeah. They've never eaten what I've eaten. They don't really perceive taste the way I perceive it. They say, oh, it's too salty. I say, no, it's not too salty. But there's sugar on the side, because I believe that you have a fingerprint that makes us unique. And I believe there's a flavor print that chefs should really identify with and understand what makes their food taste different to anyone else's. It could be the smallest thing, and that's a challenge. That's a problem that I have in the restaurant industry, especially when you start looking for accolades, the pursuit of perfection. It's so closely tied to consistency. I refuse to believe that food should be consistent because the ingredient is not consistent. The emotion is not consistent. And these places, they thrive on consistency, like everything must taste the same way every day. What are you challenging like that? Challenge yourself to make it taste different every day. And then you'll probably realize, like, wow, there are definitely levels to perfection. Much like infinity. There are different magnitudes of infinity. I think there are different magnitudes of perfection. I think you can explore imperfection and then perfect that.
Yep.
And then you stand out, and then everyone does it. This is where if everyone learns from the same master and he taught them consistency, there is no deviation in the craft. Whereas if you learn from a master of chaos and he teaches you how to perfect your own chaos, then the world is beautifully, explosively chaotic in a controlled manner of the plate. Because the plate is the frame. You can have total chaos and control there, or you can have total control there. I think that control is limiting. Chaos is abundant.
Yeah.
It's infinite. It's infinite, and entropy will always win in life. Yes, the existence approaches disorder. And that's why I say, yeah, we catch that fleeting moment on the plate where it's perfect, but the second it leaves your sight, it's gone, man. And no matter how much I try to do that circle the same way, cut that fish the same angle, there's never going to be a same piece of fish. I know they use, sous vide, you follow the recipe to the T. But atmospherically, it's impossible to bake two slices of bread will never exist equally on Earth. So why should two dishes exist? You got to scale it back and forward equally.
That's fascinating. That's absolutely fascinating, because I've heard a lot of chefs on this podcast and just generally through my day-to-day job, talking about, the perfection on the plate and all that sort of stuff. You're the first person who's talked about sort of embracing the chaos and embracing the difference and all that kind of stuff. It's really interesting to hear, I have to say, to have that perspective on it. I think that's really refreshing.
It is, and I also like to extend that into my chefs in the kitchen. One of the things that you would find in another restaurant or with another chef, particularly at the higher pedigree of the restaurant, the greater the pedigree of the restaurant, and that commitment to consistency, you will find that it has to look the same. They measure the cuts down to the millimeter. Me, I teach my chefs, look here, understand what beauty is and look for it. That's it. Know what beauty is. You see what I do? I think this is beautiful. If you agree with it, try to recreate it, or try to create something equally as beautiful, as different as it is. Individually as beautiful, because maybe you might inspire me. I don't expect any of my cooks to follow. And I see some of them. I have a guy in the kitchen working part-time, 2 days a week. He's not even a chef. He's studying, I think, robotic engineering. Comes in, big up man like Mohammed, because we do these puree swipes, and I teach them this, and I know some of them get it right, some of them don't. But then he used a steak knife and did it one day, and I'm like, that's beautiful. I've never done that. Yeah. So I want you to teach me too. I want you to inspire me too. I want you to take and to explore that abundant well within yourself of inspiration and share it. As I don't want to be solely responsible for propagating or establishing the limits or the minimum acceptable standard for what beauty is. Challenge me. Challenge what I do. Create as well. Compete. Be competitive. Create from within. Create externally. Use your resources. Look out to nature. Let nature inspire you. Or you can inspire nature. Challenge it to be different, man. Like, that's what we do as chefs as well. It's like sometimes we do these things with eggs where we cook them, manipulate them, and then serve them in a form that they look like an egg again. So it's like, you're scrambling the egg to reset it. Yep. And I think that's kind of beautiful, because we do challenge nature all the time and let things do things that they're not supposed to. And I think that can come from accident or from design.
So one of the reasons I first got in contact with you, Kareem, was how strong your social media photography and plates and everything were. I was just wondering how important that is for you to sort of communicate that to your audience? You know, is it it's something you spend a lot of time doing? Is you spend a lot of thought doing? Is it stuff that's just the restaurant, or is that stuff that you're doing, you know, on your own dollar effectively? Or
it's not even a social media thing per se. It's a competitive thing, I'll tell you.
oh
Yeah, it started out competitively.
Yeah.
Like I took pictures to compete. And when I say that, it's because, and I always appreciated photography and food photography because I used to, and this starts from my mom. My mom used to have cookbooks lying around the house, and she'd never read the recipe. She just used to say she likes to look at pretty pictures of food.
yeah,
I'm like, that's weird. And then I'd find myself, you know, back in these days when you went to the bathroom, you didn't have a phone. So I'd take her cookbooks, right? And I'd look at them. I'm like, man, this look good too, yo. And I'd never read a recipe, so I didn't know how to cook. I just try a thing. And I never thought about how food should be presented until I started cooking professionally at 25. And then I took pride in creating and making it look aesthetically pleasing. From day one, I thought presentation meant as much to me as the way it tastes. I think that none of them should outweigh the other. And I like to question whether or not my food looks better than it tastes, or the inverse, or does it taste better than it looks.
Yeah.
I'm flattered either way, as long as they're both above 85% satisfactory from my perspective. If I'm 85,
say that.
yeah, if I'm 85% satisfied with how it looks and how it tastes, I'll let you figure out which one is it favors the other.
Yeah.
You know? So when I got around to like 2016, and I was in these Facebook chef groups, and there were these other chefs who were actually taking pictures of their food and posting it, and they would get on this Facebook group, Chef's Ass. Big up to everybody from Chef's Ass, the OG Chef's Ass, and the new G Chef's Ass. Big up to everybody on there. But we used to have this calendar competition annually where the best pictures from each month would be voted, and the person would get on the calendar. So I'm like, what? There's a competition here and I'm not in this? What? So I'm like, let me start taking my pictures. So I took my pictures, and when I took my first picture, I remember they kind of trolled me. So I'm like, oh, what? You guys don't like this? You guys think you can do better? And then the psychosis takes over, and then the sociopath in me that has to improve everything every day, and I will not give up until I win this, takes over. And then inertia. I competed, I continually did that. And then I'd take pictures, I couldn't do this at work. I'd take these pictures at home, and I wanted to be different. I wanted to win this. So it started out, let me get this competition, get on this calendar.
Yeah.
Around the same time, one of my friends was like, yo, your pictures are good. You should actually post these on Instagram. So I'm like, what that? I'm like, oh, Instagram, that's not my thing. And then eventually I got over on Instagram, and then I realized, oh man, there are a lot of chefs over here taking pictures of their food too. Oh man, and there were these other Instagram accounts that would repost the best pictures. So I'm like, shit, I want to get my picture reposted too. I want to be one of the best there. So I do everything. I realized this was a bigger pool to compete against. Yes, it was tough on Chef's Ass. But Chef's Ass was predominantly chefs from either the US or the UK.
Okay.
Yeah, probably a little bit favor in the UK, but then Instagram was global. Compete and everything to me should be a competition because it inspires me to improve. And I'll find any reason to improve, but competition is usually the first one. Because left to myself, I compete against myself, and I look back at every picture that I take and I try to outdo that.
Yep.
To the point where, and when I see someone doing something that I like, I want to be as good as them. I do want that. It's not for any validation or anything. Or maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe there is something inside of me that will never be complete, and I'll never be good enough, and I always feel as if I need to be better. Maybe I'm always going to be in pursuit of that version of myself that exists in such a state of art that it cannot be challenged, or it cannot be destroyed. That I want that true version, that ultimate version of myself to exist, at least as far as the plate goes.
Yeah.
I'm always in pursuit of that. I'm much a samurai like that. I want that one swipe kill version of myself, that samurai who doesn't even think about pulling his sword. It just happens, and there is death, there's blood, and he walks away, and he drinks his bottle of rum. I want to be that final samurai. I want to be the final boss of me, man.
Yeah.
So that's where it became like, and along the way it was appreciated, and people would like it, and that was it. But the photography side and the social media side always came for a pursuit of a challenge.
I guess it kind of drives your reason to be doing the thing that you love, isn't it? It's just an extension of that.
And I had to challenge me to create every day, man.
Yeah.
And I love that challenge. I love being able, because on many days, and I'd cook these things, and it was always cheap because, like you said, I was cooking this at home predominantly with ingredients that I'd buy or forage or find or whatever, and I'd have to try to make it as beautiful as possible. From order, from chaos, I would preserve order, and then you take that picture and then it disappears forever. Many of the things I've done on IG, the pictures I've taken, I'll never recreate.
They're one-offs.
One-offs,
yeah.
Most of them, one plate, some of them, and you got to imagine, some of them you never see, some of the things I've never seen. I often look back and I say to myself sometimes that if I ever really wanted to challenge myself, it would be to recreate every dish on my feed and improve it.
Okay.
And that's a wealth of creation. I do everything differently. It's like I heard and I was listening to a musician who says that what some of these musicians are doing nowadays is that they're re-releasing their music, they're re-recording their music so that they can own their masters. And I heard one musician who was so connected to his art that he refused to do that because he says, I could never release the music that I created 20 years ago because that was my voice from 20 years ago. And I never thought to myself, damn, your voice changes, doesn't it? As a musician, he must see his voice the way I see an ingredient or a picture of my food. My presentation has changed. I could never create the way that I used to create because I am not that same person. I've changed so much fundamentally, and I would hate to do it. It would just be a pale imitation because in the moment, I wouldn't be impressed. I would not be impressed. With that said, sometimes I do look at some of the things that I did 6-7 years ago, and I'm like, wow. I was on one, man. I do pat myself on the shoulder sometimes, but then I also look at some of the things that I've done last year, and I'm like, yo, this was trash, man.
That's growth though, isn't it? That's growth. I mean, I find that in photography all the time. You know, the fact that I wouldn't have taken that in the same way, I'd have positioned that person slightly differently or whatever it might be. And I think that's growth, and that's really important as a craft or an art, right?
We also, we always measure ourselves against ourselves and compare ourselves. We're forever comparing and subtracting and rarely adding. Like, it's like growth is destructive.
Well, growth can be failure, can't it? Growth can absolutely be failure, but it's just keeping going and learning.
Because I'll tell you something, the better you get, right? You improve more, or at least more dynamically in the beginning. The better you get, you improve, your rate of improvement shrinks. And that's something that can be humanizing. You wonder to yourself, can I get any better, or am I approaching that limit?
Well, there's also the Dunning-Kruger effect, isn't there, where people think they know more than they think they know, and then you plateau, and then you get to a stage, and I found this with photography with you, I was, oh my goodness, there's so much more to this subject than I thought, and then you realise you're learning it, and it's only then do you start to become probably quite good at something, after you've got over that initial period of thinking this is easy. Like so many people think, and I'm sure it's the same with cooking, same with photography, that you're just pushing a button. How hard can that be, right?
Oh, man.
And I probably had that when I first started, because I think as we were talking before, I'm self-taught at this. You know, I never studied at this. I never had a formal training. It's like, I probably had that arrogance of, oh, I can do that, it's quite easy. And you go out and you take a nice landscape or whatever. And it's only once you start investigating more and more into a subject, you suddenly realize that, actually, I thought I was here in the level, I'm down here. And then you look at the great people like the Massimos or the other chefs that you were mentioning, the Daniel Humms, they know what they're doing. They know how to do that thing on the plate. I don't know how to do that.
But this is where I try to explain that to various people that I communicate with, and they take I don't want to say they take for granted, they just don't really understand how much goes into me doing something new. Like, especially something that's worth doing. It's not just repositioning something and just rearranging old elements or old parts of old dishes, but to create something truly progressive for me takes a lot, man, especially considering how long I've been doing this. And they don't understand the urge that I have, how essential it is for me to pursue this improvement, to pursue this degree of experience that I want for me, not just for the people around me, not for the restaurant, not for taking a picture, but for me and this is where I become an artist and no longer a craftsman. Because could I be happy with my craft? Maybe. I could actually be happy enough with doing the things I do and improving on them and perfecting them as a craftsman. But as an artist, you want to destroy and start over. I'm sure every artist wished that they could create a brand new style of art. I'm sure you'd wonder how many traditional artists wish they could sculpt, or how many forms of musicians who are of one deviation wish that they could transition into something else, but they'd never be accepted. I wish to explore other things, and I think people don't understand how important that is for me. And then to actually create and to invest that time into rearranging almost everything you know and do, that can take almost a lifetime, or parts of a lifetime. I mean, it's taken me a lifetime to get to the point where I am now. I can, sure, okay, maybe I can create a dish out of nothing, but will it be the best dish that I can create? Maybe not. Maybe it's good enough for other people, but why not seek a higher experience? And so I keep using this word experience, because I don't see food as fuel. I don't even see it as a product. I do see it as an experience. When I create, what I do, I want to create experiences and everything. Because when you look at something, it's an experience. You want to see something and it instills a feeling in you that you've never felt before. So when I do create something, I do want it to be something that emotionally resonates with me internally, and it's unfamiliar as well. And it tells me a story, because a lot of what I do as well is storytelling. As chefs, we are storytellers. And you'd want to think that the page is the plate. So everyone turns everyone, and it accumulates in a final act. I'd like to get to my final act beautifully, and not just, I don't want to be a tattered and beaten warrior on the final page. I'd like to be virtuous in my final chapter. I like to be strong, not worn, not defeated, which is something that a lot of chefs are. A lot of chefs no longer have that connection to what they do. They're no longer inspired. They resent their craft because it's cost them so much. And yes, my craft has cost me. Everything that I've done, it takes a lot of time. It's taken me away from my family. And you may say that what I do, the pursuits that I engage in are futile. Some people would say, hey, it's just food. To you. To me, it's everything. And that's the difference.
That's absolutely fascinating. Because I find the same thing with photography, especially when your profession is something that you are passionate about, which I consider myself very lucky, one, to be able to do. I'm sure it's the same for you. But I do get you can get a bit staid, can't you? If you're doing the same things over and over again, if you're constantly going to restaurants and constantly shooting the same sorts of food in the same light, in the same way. So for me, I go out of my way to keep doing other types of photography. So for me, my massive passion, if you ask me what kind of photography I would love to earn money from, would be street photography. I love street photography. I just like going out on the street, because it makes you so incredibly present about what the light is, what that person's doing, what's in the shot, whatever, reflections, puddles, all that kind of stuff. It makes you so incredibly present. And I find that incredibly... That gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. When I can spend an hour just going out and doing an hour's worth of street photography, it's fantastic. It really is. And it really pushes your creativity. It really pushes your thought. And nobody ever really sees them. I've got a tiny little Instagram account for my street photography. It's got like 60 people in it, but I don't care. It's not why I do it. I just like having somewhere to show it. It is quite nice. But it's the process. It's the process of creating something new that I like.
I agree with you. And it also, one thing that I think that I could take from that is it also teaches you a new perspective as well. You see things differently and from a different lens and a different angle. And what I attribute that to, although most of what I do is what people see on social media, I guess, I have books at home, man, that I write in.
Okay.
Several that I write my thoughts in. I write ideas.
So journals.
They are journals. But that's what Instagram was for me, because associated with a lot of the pictures, I write stuff as well there, and it dates me and it frames me and it also transports me. Because when you look at it, it's a time machine. Yeah, it is. You go back to that presence and that state of mind of where I was when I took that picture 7 years ago, and I remember the words, and I'm almost there existentially. So it tethers me to the younger versions of myself, and I also anticipate that connection of what I do now to future versions of myself. So I want to preserve as much of the moment that I'm in now when I create to connect to myself in the future, so it knows that future version of me will know that my heart and soul were in the right place when I did it. Or often, if it's not, I code a lot of messages to myself in what I do and what I write to look for that support in the future. or to give that support in the future when I need it. Yeah, these are things when you talk about second street photography, that's just for you.
Yeah.
A lot of what I do is just for me too, man.
Yeah.
I only show the picture, man.
Yeah.
But there are parts of, because what I do is healing to me. It preserves me. It preserves my uniqueness, my identity. It connects me to hope. And what I do is, it fuels me, man. You're in this room here because I do what I do well. Yeah. I'm in this room here because I do what I do well. No one told me to do this. I told me to do this. No one motivated me. No one encouraged me to be better. I didn't have that support system around me. No one taught me to do what I do.
Yep.
I did this. And this is where people say, oh, you're arrogant. Yes, because I did this. You weren't there. You weren't there the many nights with me when I was reading these books and trying to figure out, oh, how do I do this when I was teaching myself? You weren't there. You didn't encourage me to keep going. So how do you criticize me at this point when you think, oh, look, such and such, he thinks he's a big deal? No, I don't think I'm a big deal, but I do think I'm very good at what I do. This is why when I said sometimes, it may sound like when I say I'm closer to Daniel Humm and Gordon Ramsay than the average cook. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just think that it would be disrespectful for you to think that I just cook. Because to me, it's a lot more. It's a craft for me. It is a craft. I take this so seriously for so long. And if you've ever taken something seriously enough, for long enough, you would feel challenged if someone either A, undermined your time, or B, undermined your skill. Yeah, it's like when you can't be a professional athlete, right? Beating that 10,000 hour mark by hundreds of hours. And then somebody who just practiced for like 2 years say, you ain't that good. Oh, no, don't you dare talk about me like that. Come, as a matter of fact, let's go. Let me show you. And that's where that competitive side in me. I believe that I am just as good as anyone who has taken something seriously enough for long enough as I have. And I reserve that right to remind people.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. I guess that's the creative sides of what we do, right?
So, you think Picasso thought anybody could paint more than him? Hell no, maybe not, Do you think?
Yeah.
Man, come on. Do you think Mark Twain thought anybody could write more than him? Do you think Isaac Newton thought anyone was smarter than him? Or do you think Isaac Newton really thought in his most private moments that he was not just as smart as anyone else? Let me not say that. He probably believed that there were people who could supersede him, as I do. There are people who outclass me. There are several hundreds of people. But make no mistake about this. Given me enough time and understanding my own capacity to recover from failure, I will get to where they are. No, maybe by then they'd have elapsed my pursuit and they'd be greater than what they are. But I will be as good as I can be given enough time.
It's fascinating. That's absolutely fascinating. I think that's a really interesting way of looking at craft and skill and dedication and all that kind of stuff. I really like that. I'm really intrigued though. So when you talked about starting new and doing the plates, how do you start? Because for me, so when I'm doing street photography, it's literally just a process of I put myself in an environment. I'm not sure that can be an equivalent as a chef because it requires more thought, more planning, I would imagine. And that's why I particularly like street photography, because my normal photography is very structured. You can see by all the equipment here, you have to do things in a certain order, all that kind of stuff. Street photography, just go out and see what happens. How do you start when you're just doing something for yourself? And if it goes on Instagram or not is not the matter, but I'm just intrigued to how you start, more on the plating possibly than the actual cooking side.
Well, that's funny that you mentioned the plating. It is more than the canvas, it's the medium of expression. And it's almost like we exist in space-time or along the fabric of space-time. The food I create exists along the fabric of the plate. So if you work the fabric of space-time, experience as we perceive it changes, like reality changes. It's no different from a plate. Change the plate and the experience, the reality changes, the perception changes. So for example, if I put a piece of fish on this plate, and I put a piece of fish on that plate, it probably belongs on one more than the other. So the ingredient is abstract, and it's complemented by the abstraction of the plate itself. So now I have more possibilities. So from 2 ingredients and 2 plates, I have maybe 16 possibilities My math could be wrong. Let's say 2 to the 2, it could be 4, it could be 8, whatever, but you have that many possibilities. Well, it depends. If it's a round plate, you have uniformity. But let's say the plate is angled, right? And you shift the angle of the plate. Then the angle of the food, does it remain static or do you shift that? No, I don't think necessarily in that way. I'm not as angular in my conception. However, when I see the plate itself, and this is funny you mentioned that. So when it's something I used to do, and I never really told anyone this, right? But I would turn the lights off. I have to be alone in the house. I turn the lights off. I put some music on. Music without words. Normally it's Max Richter or something, a recomposition of Vivaldi's something where I can actually envision this plate.
Yep.
And I would use my hands to draw the plate, right? And while I'm drawing the plate, I start to see, what do I see on top of it? Maybe I'll see something there. And when I see that one thing along the middle of the plate, do I give it a color? Perhaps it's orange, okay? So what is this? It's a carrot. So now I have a carrot and I have a plate. And then what? Do I have a sauce on it? And yes, I do. So what does that sauce do? That sauce is drizzled around it haphazardly. Okay, so what does it mean now? Oh, what is this? It means something to dress it. Now, what is the texture? I don't know why I think fur. For some reason, this is how creativity starts. So I have a carrot in a plate with a sauce and fur. Now, my challenge has changed. I don't need a dish now. I need fur. So now, what do I use that's fur? Well, candy floss. No. Listen to me. Now, star anise and carrot. So I can make orange candy floss with star anise in this. No, this doesn't sound so bad. And this has never existed.
Goodness me.
So I'd write that down.
Yeah.
And this goes into the book.
Yeah.
And that's one. I'll never do that again, but you have that braised carrot with a dressing of orange liqueur. Maybe let's say orange, and what goes well with orange? Orange and fennel. So I juice some fennel, reduce it with orange juice, split it with an anise oil. So it's really star anise flavor. It's probably braised in an orange juice, and then it has that orange candy floss with star anise. So what does this taste like? I have no idea. But it exists, and I don't think anyone has done this before.
Yeah. Well, I guess
if it does, it's parallel thinking.
Yeah.
And that's how I would start this. And then I would literally, when I do that, once I'm at that point where I think I have a conceived dish, in reality, I don't write it down. But then I kind of do this and I wipe the plate clean. And then I go again, I start again, I start again. And then maybe I swipe something. So what have I swiped? I've swiped a puree because it's a swoop. Okay, what color is it? It's a shade of brown. Okay, what could that be? Ooh, roasted apple. Okay, now what else does that mean? So I have that. I have the puree. The puree is going this way. I don't like it, so I visually turn the plate there. Okay, so I have the puree. I have the swipe. I want something on the side of it now. So I have that balance. What could that be? Okay, here I have a duck leg. Yeah, but the duck leg is it's angular to it. I want it to be straight. So what do? I have to debone this duck leg. I have to roll a ballotine of it, and then I have to roll it up and stuff it. So I have a duck leg and apple. And what else do I need with this? I don't know. I need something that would go well with a duck and an apple. And you know where I start thinking now? I think about a farm because I see a duck. I see an apple. So what else do I think about now? Ham. Don't ask me why I'm thinking about ham. It's because there's a pig there, but I know ham, apple works. So what could I do that could complement that? I don't know, but maybe cabbage. So I think cabbage because that's what you'd feed the pig. So I have duck, apple, ham, cabbage. So what am I doing with this ham and this cabbage? Maybe I could braise this cabbage, right? And then set it into something that's shaped in a log, which is doable because all I have to do is layer the cabbage as a gratin and put some stuffing, sage and apple. So now I have a sage and apple stuffing. Now I'm going to layer it. I'm going to press it there. And what am I going to do now? Because I have this cabbage, I'm going to roll it in cabbage again. Let's set that on top of the puree with the duck leg. So it's a very interesting mixture of, you never heard that duck and ham. No, but in my mind, this works already and I can taste this. I'm telling you this works. I told you about tasting things before. So this is me cooking this dish in my mind. And it would take me a few hours to make this happen, but it exists. Yeah. And this is me pulling from that well, that inflationary field of creation that existed. And I believe we all inherently tap into through whatever methodology we use, what idiosyncrasy we have. But I believe that we can connect deeper to this well and realize how infinite it is and pull from it and create.
I can imagine, just from hearing you talk like that, I mean, one, the passion, which it's one of the reasons I like doing this podcast, because it's around passionate people, and it's just nice to be around. It's great to be around. But I can see why your stuff probably looks so different, because I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that they start with the plate. It's usually ingredient, or it's seasonal, or something like that. So the fact that your jumping off point is clearly so different to everybody else I've spoken to, clearly must then, when you take the creative process further down the line, because your starting point is so different, everything else will be different. And that's great, right?
Yeah, it is. Because I do start with the ingredient. I guess it all, but this is it, okay? So it's so non-linear. It's not even it's not even three-dimensional. It's multi-dimensional. Like I said, creativity is not going from point A to point B. It's going through point A, through point B, upwards, downwards, inwards, in every angle, man. It exists from here, there, you pull from there. It's constantly evolving, man. It doesn't stop. It doesn't start either. It just is at the moment, and you frame it. You literally just capture the moment as best as you can using what you have, and you move on. And then you keep moving,
It sounds like street photography. It's exactly what that sounds like.
This is it. This is it.
Same process, just different.
It's so fluid. It's so fluid. It's infinite, man. And you can only do the best. It's like when we spoke about thinking about infinity, and infinity can be anything. Let's use numbers. Pick one, and then pick another one, and then pick another one. You can do this forever, man. I see creativity as the same thing. Yeah, you can get tired of counting, or you can pick the same number twice. Some people like some numbers more than others. Or you can keep adding one. You can keep adding one. You can keep adding 20. You can keep doing so much. You can look at the points between, and it's not even that. Sometimes it's the infinity that exists between 2 points as well, like between 2 and 3. Because you can have rice and chicken, right? These are my 2 ingredients. There are various iterations of all that. Like when you think about rice and chicken alone, right? You could think about chicken soup with a little bit of with risotto rice sprinkled around it. Rice and chicken, I could probably deep fry, or tataki. I can make probably what's that word? I can probably make a goujon of chicken and then roll it inside of sushi. That is rice and that is rice and chicken as well. Or you can actually probably just cook a risotto with chicken stock. That is rice and chicken as well, and this is 3. Or I could probably make a wafer out of rice and then put a chicken mousse on top of it. That's rice and chicken part 3. There's an infinity between 2. And these are the infinities I like to explore. And that's where you realize, like, I could create this forever. I can exhaust this. Because at the same time, it challenges me to understand what you think is chicken and what I think is chicken. Because to me, an egg is a chicken. Yes. Yeah. Just at the what stage. So now, scrambled eggs, so fried rice with scrambled with eggs are a very loose definition of rice and chicken. So I could actually create as much as I can from 2, as many as I can from 10.
It's absolutely fascinating, and especially, because I've got on this track of what you're talking about and the street photography that I like to do. I could walk down this street every day for a year, and it would be different every single time. The people would be different, the lights would be different, the reflection would be different, everything would be different. But it's the same street, isn't it? Like you were saying with the chicken and the rice, it's the same thing. It's how you perceive difference.
But it's never the same. And if it depends on the way how it always depends on how high you. It always depends on how much you're willing to shift your perspective to a higher degree. For example, and one of the science fiction things that I like when people say is, it's interesting that we, as a thought experiment, we try to conceive a time machine. When in reality, a time machine is not what we need to be building. We need to be building a time and space machine, because because where we are right now, let's say you get a time machine and you want to travel back to this point 10 years ago. Earth is not here anymore. The sun moves through the universe at an astronomical space. So the position in time space changes. So everything changes. Everything, which is why I say with food, the ingredient, every one of them changes. Of course, you can reduce it to the primitive understanding, an egg is an egg, but it's not. Because if those 2 eggs were fertilized and they mature, those 2 chickens wouldn't be the same. So the eggs are not the same. So let's start treating every ingredient with the individual respect that it appreciates, and tell a different story with it.
I've really enjoyed this. This has been super interesting. But I think we'll start to wrap it up now. Could I ask you to just describe the dish that you're going to do for us today?
Yeah, for sure, man. And I'll describe it as best as I can. So what we're going to do is a curry roasted portobello mushroom with a sultana dressing.
Okay.
That's as simple as terms as I can put it, and I'll let you see it. So I'm just really roasting a mushroom with some raisins. Well, curry roasted mushroom with some raisins.
Okay.
Playing on like I said, I've never tried this before. In my mind, will it work? I don't know.
So that's interesting. So this is clearly not a restaurant dish that you have on the menu. Is it one that you will sort of plate as you see it, or do you have an idea in your head? I'm going to put this here. I'm going to use negative space. I'm going to cut it in a certain way. Have you thought that much?
I'll be honest with you. I have an idea of how I'm going to plate this one.
You do?
Yes. But that's just because of and I'll be honest with you, right? Because this means so much to me, I didn't want to actually try to improvise too much, which is great. Maybe I'll do that for you. But using the techniques that we discussed that I like to do, I'm going to frame stuff, I'm going to use angles, and I am going to present it. But like I said, hey, do I present it at home?
Yeah.
Or in my mind? May not necessarily happen here.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I actually don't want to look like an idiot here.
Cameras.
Well, funny enough, okay, now let me show you, right? I'll be honest with you, right? So, not that I'm afraid of that challenge. Yo, I've been on, oh man, I shouldn't admit this. I didn't get that far, but I've been in situations where I needed to actually present a dish at an important time in my life in a competition that I should have rehearsed that I didn't, and I figured I was going to freestyle it that day. I didn't get that far though, but I didn't know what I was going to do in a competition with a dish that I conceived, and I'd executed in various parts, and I was going to trust myself to just say, I can wing this. So I've learned sometimes when to wing things and when not to wing things.
Yes.
But we'll see how this goes, man.
Well, that's fascinating. Just out of interest though, do you have enough ingredients to do it twice, so you can do it kind of the way you thought and then maybe just freestyle one?
Absolutely.
Would that be something
I
we
got
could do?
2 of them. So we're going to freestyle one.
There we go.
Yes. How about that? Yes. I'll do one. Yes. Absolutely. Now we're talking.
Let's do that.
Okay,
Great.
wicked.
Thank you, man.
No worries, my man.
Thank you so much.
So here we have our sultana puree, right? Which goes on the plate first. And like I said, I like circles to frame. So I'm going to try and like I say, these circles are never perfect. But that's good enough for me. The next stage is where I actually dress what's going on the plate, which is a mushroom. So we're going to use this one, which has already been cut. And here I have a dressing made from chasseur, which it's a variation of a chasseur sauce. So I have some mushrooms cooked down with some garlic and some ginger. And I just put that there like that.
How did you come up with this dish? Is this just one that you would use the process that we talked about earlier, or is this something that you've...
Well, I have a roasted mushroom on the menu already, which I serve with different ingredients, and it's a part of accompanying something, but I never thought to curry it and serve it with the sultanas, which is what I'm doing here now. So I then go with the sultana dressing, maybe just a little bit of the sultana puree on there as well. So you see why I dress on the plate, because as you can see, you get that drippage there, which I don't want.
No, absolutely.
And then I'm also going to add some shallot rings, which I have deep fried, and I've dressed with mushroom powder and curry powder as well.
Anything curry gets my vote.
Yeah, there we go. Me too, man. And then I'm just going to finish with some pea shoots.
Nice pop of colour.
Yeah, which I don't. I'm often. I'd like to step away from putting things on the plate just for color, to be honest with you. So I'm going to restrain myself as much as possible here.
Okay. You're not a tweezers man?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
Not practical.
I find chefs fall into 2 camps.
Yeah.
Those that tweeze and those that don't tweeze.
You know. So now at this point, I'm also going to add just a little bit more of this here. Arbitrarily placed. And some more of my sultana dressing. and a little bit of the oil to add that contrast of.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
that really works, doesn't it?
Now you see, now this starts to feel like something ancient and primordial, right? And it's the color of the plate that gives it that feeling, almost archaeological, man.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It's got like a
And then I
rocky
just put that right there. Here we are. And I put nothing more on this, man.
beautiful. I mean, it smells amazing as well. I know
It does, right?
It doesn't help with YouTube, but it really does. The curry smell is just delicious.
So, you know, restraint.
Restraint. There you
I
go.
put nothing else on here, man.
Yeah.
Nothing else. And normally I would struggle to not put more herbs or something or more colors, but what?
Yeah.
As a compositionally speaking, what do you think this is missing?
I don't think it's missing anything.
Exactly.
You know, to be honest with you.
Less is more.
I have noticed, although you did say earlier about the rules of three, I have noticed you've used threes.
Well, boy,
Busted.
I am a creature of habit too.
All right, so we are going from version 2 freestyle.
Version 2, I don't know what we're going to do here necessarily. I had an idea the first one, but I do have this. So now, nice little dollop of that puree.
Are you going to do deliberately things in twos now?
There's that. So as you can see here, I have various different cuts of the mushroom. And if you notice, just the way you cut things differently, maybe we should go through this as an
Yeah, please
experiment,
do.
right?
Yeah.
So now, remember when I was telling you about that plate in my mind and that there where I see things cut, where it goes, where can I put it? Now I'm thinking, and I like the idea of negative area. Although, compositionally speaking, do I want to balance this plate? Because on one hand, I could superimpose this here and just leave it there, but it's not enough. But however, if I just superimpose it there, then beautiful, you see? It fills.
Yep.
I think that's where I wanted that for this dish, and it would just be a very minimalist presentation.
So did you decide that because of the swish? So you can see like a
Yes.
small area of where the sauce didn't
Well,
quite
it
see
told me a while ago. I didn't know if I was going to swoop it. I didn't know. To be honest with you, I wanted to use these two. Because I think the cut looks cleaner, but this one tells me. It tells me.
Yeah.
So now.
I would agree with you. I really like the char.
Oh man, it's
on the
beautiful,
two
man.
marks.
It's beautiful.
So
This,
I can see
but
why
for
you would
different,
pick
but
those.
it doesn't work with the swoop here.
Yeah.
You know where this would work? In a bowl. And maybe I'll do a third one. Maybe. No, why not, man?
Why not?
Yeah, it's not like we're gonna. So that goes there. The lot dressing. Maybe a little bit more of that. And then we can get those rings on there. No. I can't help it, right?
Can't leave it alone, can we? Huh?
No. Well, you know what I am going to challenge on this one?
Go on.
Maybe no green.
No green. Oh, brave.
Maybe no green.
Brave.
Maybe not, but there's nothing on this plate that indicates that it necessarily needs it.
No, absolutely. So what do you think? Which do you reckon?
Now, I'll show you something, right?
Go on.
That is what I'm more used to. But when I look at this, right? Okay, you know, I have a book with me, right?
Go on.
And this is Daniel Humm, right? This is the same dude who I told you he is my idol.
Yep.
And we're just gonna randomly flip to a page and see which one is closer to what Daniel Humm would do.
All right.
Right?
Yeah, great idea.
Yeah.
Let's do
So random page, let me see here.
it. There we go.
Okay, well that's a
Well, I'd say that's quite similar straight away to the second one because there's no green on that, is there?
no, there is none. But let's find something else as well. Okay, there is absolutely no color on that one.
Was no contrast, was there?
But look at this one here, okay?
Yeah.
No, maybe. Remember I told you about that mushroom though, right? So you see the straight line cut right there, right? You see just absolute minimalism.
Yep.
This is almost a hybrid of the two, in my opinion, or at least I can see the interconnectivity between the two of them.
Yeah.
But then let's keep going because this is definitely not a style of anything he would do per se. I think this probably is more similar to,
Yeah.
it reminds me of Ikoyi almost.
Well, see, what I've noticed just purely from some of the images I've seen on there, now it could just be coincidence. They were very monochromatic, which I guess
Yes.
more monochromatic.
Okay, but look at
right?
this one here, right?
There we go.
You get that, just a couple of things, man.
Yeah.
So maybe it is that where I need to learn to be confident enough in what I do to not put anything. Because look at it, right? He is so restrained in everything that he does.
And the negative space. He's not afraid of a bit of
No,
space,
he's not. He's not. Just nothing going on these plates, man. And also, it almost feels infinite in what he does. Like, look at this, man. Come on. There's literally nothing there. 2 things. Man, I guess it would be enough for me to say, you know, why more? Why more? Why
After
more?
looking at that, I would suggest that's more Daniel Humm than that.
Maybe,
that
definitely.
One, would you?
And it's also very similar to Ikoyi. So I'll show you a picture, and this all doesn't have to go in because I should have brought the Ikoyi cookbook. But if I show you,
What are you saying? Ikoyi?
Ikoyi, it's a 2 Michelin-starred restaurant in London,
Oh right, okay.
right? And if you look at the style of food that they do,
Oh yeah. Oh, is that the West African?
Yes.
North African.
yeah, but look at that. So you see where it's kind of like,
Yeah.
and it's avant-garde. And look at it. Just 2 things, right? It's kind of like
There
you get that feel for just being. Oh, look. Okay, so this doesn't. Maybe almost, but this is where these are my peers, where I aspire to be.
Yeah.
To do what they do and to do something very different to things that they do. Because I'll tell you, and this dish doesn't. I don't know where you'll find this dish on earth. A curried mushroom with raisins and like you get.
new one on me.
Well, there you go. I am tempted to wonder how green would contrast. I have
Pop it
to.
on and see what you think, because you can always take it off, right?
Yeah, you can, but maybe on another. Well, what we do, maybe we'll do the 3rd dish as well. Or maybe, you know, just one. How about that? Just one.
Just one.
How about that? Just one, so it's there.